Okay, hello Cloud Gurus and welcome to this lecture. In this lecture we're going to look at bash scripting, and essentially what we're going to do is we're going to write a script that our EC2 instances are going to run when they're first being provisioned. And this script will essentially go in and install Apache on our web servers. It will then go in and apply all the necessary updates in terms of security patches, and then it will take a file that we have in S3 and move it over to our Apache directory and essentially create a web page for us. And we'll be able to accomplish all this without even having to log into the terminal. So the first thing I need you to do is open up a text editor. Okay, so here's a text editor I've got on the Mac, which is called Text Wrangler. And all I'm going to do in here is type, "Hello, Cloud Gurus, I am now alive." Okay, that's all I'm going to do. And I'm going to go ahead and save this as a HTML file. So go save as, and we'll call this index, and then rather than .txt, we'll call it index.html. I'm going to save this to my documents and hit save. Okay, and I can see this file here. It's an index.html, and you can see that the kind is HTML. And so now I'm going to go over to the AWS console. Okay, so I'm logged into the AWS console, and just to keep things simple, I want you to just take a note of what region you're in. So I'm in the Irish region. So I'm going to go ahead and go over to S3, and I'm going to go and create a new bucket. And I'm going to call this bucket a Cloud Guru website bucket. And this is going to be the bucket that contains all my website code in it. Okay, and I want you to make sure that the region that you create this bucket in is the same region in which you're going to launch your EC2 instance. And the reason for that is you can do this in completely separate regions if you want, but the code will slightly change. So I just want to make sure that the code that we give you is going to work on the first go. So go ahead and hit create. And with that bucket, I'm then going to go into that bucket. So a Cloud Guru website bucket, and I'm going to go in and upload. I'm going to add a file, and it's my index.html file, and hit OK, hit start upload. And by default, all new buckets are private. And so if we click on this object and we go to properties, we'll be able to see its permissions, and you can see that nobody can access this aside from myself. Okay, so this is a private object in a private bucket. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is go over to the EC2 console. And we're going to go in and create a new instance. So I'm going to use the Amazon Linux AMI, and the reason for this is it comes pre-installed with the AWS command line tools, which is what we're going to use. I'm going to use a T2 micro, and I'm going to change my role to S3 admin access. And then I'm going to click down here, and this is the advanced details. So essentially, this is where we put our bash script, and we can enter in our bash script either as a text that you type in here or as a file that you upload. So I'm going to type it in as text. So how do we write a bash script? Well, it's really, really simple. The first thing we need to do is start with our shebang. And a shebang is simply the number sign followed by an exclamation mark, and then the path to our interpreter, which is bin/bash. Now, interpreter basically just takes all the commands that we write underneath this and runs them at root level. So the first thing we need to do is install HTTPD or Apache. So it'd be yum install HTTPD, and then we'll force that installation with the -yes sign. So there we go, we've installed Apache. We're then going to apply our update, so it'd be yum update -yes, and you could do it the other way around, it's entirely up to you. So the next thing we want to do is run the AWS command line, and we're going to copy our index.html file from the bucket that we just created to this EC2 instance. So the way we do that is we type in AWS S3 and then copy, and then S3 ://. Now, if you forget the name of your bucket, you can just click up here, command click, and then go across to your new tab, go back into S3, and obviously get the name of the bucket. So it was a Cloud Guru website bucket. So come back here and go a Cloud Guru website bucket, and then we need to do /index.html, so we're just moving one object, and then we want to move that object to our var www.html folder, like so. Okay, so in theory that should copy our file across to our var www.html folder. You then need to make sure that the Apache service starts. So what we would do is we would do service httpd start, And then we also might want to make sure that the server starts if our EC2 instance accidentally reboots. So we'll go ahead and do check config httpd and then on. And that is it. So essentially, this little script takes, installs Apache, updates our operating system to include all the security updates. It then moves this file over to the Apache root directory. It then starts Apache, and it makes sure that Apache is turned on if that EC2 instance restarts. So I'm going to go ahead and hit next to add storage. I'm going to use just general purpose SSD, and I'm going to call this the bash instance. And go ahead and hit next. And then I'm going to select my existing security group, so my web DMZ, and hit review and launch. And I'm going to hit launch. And I'm going to use the same private key that I use for everything and hit launch again. Okay, so that is now launching. So we come back here, we can see some failed tests of mine, and that was actually because the S3 bucket that I created in another lecture was the one I was using, and essentially it was created in the Korean region, and I was trying to run this EC2 instance from Ireland, and you need to slightly tweak the script in order to make that work. So that's why we went in and created a bucket in the same region in which we are using. Okay, so I'm just going to pause the video here, but in theory what we should be able to do once this EC2 instance comes up is just navigate to the IP address, and we'll be able to see that web page that we created. So I'm going to pause the video and wait for this EC2 instance to come online. Okay, so it's come back online, and I'm now just going to highlight this and go to the public IP address, and I'm just going to enter it into my browser and hit enter. And there we go, we can see, hello Cloud Gurus, I am now alive. So we don't even need to SSH into this instance to do things like turn on Apache, move our code over to the EC2 instance. And you can see how we can start to automate things now. We can use bash scripts to start moving code around from our S3 buckets, which is a durable form of storage, to our EC2 instances. And essentially you can see how we've got all these little building blocks with AWS, and that's even their logo, is these little building blocks, and you can start to use all these different services to start connecting things and building a really resilient website. Okay, so that's it for this lecture, guys. If you have any questions, please let me know. The code is available for download in the resources section if you need it. So if you've got time, please feel free to move on to the next lab. Thank you.